Okay, I think we should get started. First of all, I want to welcome you all to this second presentation on building or improving your interviewing skills with a focus on job and college interviews. Obviously, this is a second presentation, and it's also a series of more presentations to come, which will focus on personal/professional development. Let me just caution you that the first part of this presentation is going to mainly focus on job interview, and then the latter half of the presentation will do college, so that if someone is interested in mainly job interviews, they can view the first half. And if someone is interested in the college interviewing, could do the other half, and so on and so forth. Again, my name is Abraham, and I am a master's student of finance and econ. This is my second semester, and we just hopefully going to get started. Obviously, my background is in finance and econ, but I have had experiences both in the private sector and the public sector, and I've had several experiences also in the nonprofit sector as well. So throughout the years, I've had the opportunity to come across so many career specialists whom I have worked with or dealt with or interacted with, and learned so much. And I just feel that it's just urgent that we share this knowledge with others, so that others will take it and recycle it by sharing it with other people as well. So let's just jump right into it. All right, so as far as interviewing, just want to start off with the basics. As you know, the art of communication really has two parts to it. One is your ability to speak well, and the other part is the ability to persuade. Those two are two different things. They're not the same. For you to be able to speak well is one thing, and to be able to persuade is another. Speaking well is something that you develop over the years. It's not something that you just build overnight or over a year. Just because you go to school, it does not warrant that you'll become a good speaker. Especially if a particular language, it could be English or Arabic or Spanish or any other language. If they are your second language or third language, you will struggle, because it does take a lot of time to develop the necessary skills to be able to communicate in a manner that's clear and cohesive, in a manner that makes sense. Now, to be able to do that, as I mentioned, it'll take time. It will take years. Now, if you were to ask me, okay, Abraham, what can I do? What would you suggest that I do if I really want to improve my communication skills, my ability to speak? And when I say speak, I'm not talking about hi, how are you, what's going on. I'm not talking about the day-to-day interactions with people. What I'm talking about is your ability to put your thoughts either onto paper by describing an idea, describing a project, describing, a program, describing something, and being able to describe it in a manner that the other side understands what you're saying. That's where what exactly I'm talking about here. So this is very, very important. Now, let me say this. Don't never, ever let anyone tell you that you cannot become or be good at something. At the end of the day, it really comes down to you. You cannot control what people will say about you, or how they will try to influence your advancement in life or your development. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to you. Will you allow what other people say to you constrain your growth and development, or will you say, what, well, that's fine. If that's how other people think or believe how I am, then at the end of the day, it's going to come down to me. So what I'm trying to say is, you have the responsibility to work on yourself. Growth does not come from the outside. Primarily, it comes from the inside. So if you're hungry for growth, for development, to develop a particular skill, don't believe the myth that you have to be talented, and you have to have the God-given potential, and you're born with it. Personally, I don't believe in that stuff. What I believe in is hard work. What I believe in is practice. Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, is quoted to have said that mastery is acquired through repetition. Let me repeat that. Mastery is acquired through repetition. All right. Not a college degree, not school, repetition. The more you do something, the better you become at it. So to answer my question that I posed about what could I do, when I say I see me, you, and everyone else out there, what could you do to develop your ability to speak in a manner that's so cohesive and understandable to the other side? And that is reading. That is reading. Reading is one of the best ways, if not the only way. And I am willing to challenge anyone out there, a teacher or a professor or anybody, to try to convince me otherwise. I believe in this, and I know it, and I have actually had conversations with high school teachers and even college professors about how reading is essential for a child's development, for a person development. And go on and read the biographies of all these, successful people who are successful in the realm, whether it's in business or politics or in nonprofit. These people have one thing in common. They do a lot of reading. They dedicate some time out of their day to do some reading. And reading helps you develop the necessary skills you need to be able to speak and communicate and write. So let me just say that to you. It may hurt your feeling, but that's fine. If you do not read on a daily basis, I would say if you're not committing 45 minutes a day, just a minimum of 45 minutes a day to reading, and I don't care what you read, you just have to read something, then you're basically limiting yourself. You're limiting your growth. Yes, you'll be able to speak, but you're not going to be able to speak as good as someone who does, reading on a daily basis. Because reading helps, your mental growth. It helps you acquire new vocabulary, new terminology. It helps you see writing styles, thinking, and develop your critical thinking skills. And besides that, there's nothing else I can offer you besides reading. And I think it's critical to mention that. Again, you may be able to speak well. There are people who are well-spoken, but they cannot persuade when they speak. Because think about it. For an interview, what you're trying to do, you're trying to convince the interviewer that you are the best fit for the position for which you are applying, right? And if you're just sharing and you're telling a story, that's good. You're telling them who you are and your skills and so on and so forth, but are you really persuading them? So you may ask, okay, what do you mean speak well and then persuade? Yes, they are two different things, because there are people who can speak well and not persuade. To do both things is to, number one, to speak well, is to communicate so that you don't ramble. You're not mumbling. You're not having a hard time trying to say what's in your mind. That's what I mean by speaking well. So if you're hesitant and you're taking time to convey the idea that's in your mind, that's what I mean by people struggle with speaking. Now, persuading is the other side, and that is to basically, learn about the position, learn about the company, and now tying your skills and qualifications with the company's, skills and qualifications that they look for in a candidate. That's what persuasion is. It's your ability to tell them, look, this is what you're looking for. Here is why I am fit for this position. Now, to say it, to speak it, to express it is one thing. To persuade the other side that you're the best fit is another. So, to develop your ability to persuade, again, I go back to saying that it's something you develop over the years through practice and practice and practice. So that's important to mention. All right. So again, going back to this framework of interviewing, I wanted to give you the basics, because I'm not here to share with you, hey, how should you dress to an interview? How much cologne or this to put. That's not what I am in for this presentation. What I am particularly interested in is the substantive element of interviewing. And what I mean by substantive element, I'm talking about the subtleties of interviews. And that's something that you may not find online. You may go online and find information about how to dress properly, how to prepare for an interview. There's so much resources out there. What I'm trying to share with you is basically examples and subtle knowledge that you may not be able to glean just from reading an article online or reading, a PDF. So that's what I want to focus on. And that's why I want to share these this framework with you. Now, understand that if you have been invited to an interview, that means they have read your resume. They know something about you, right? They know what you have been in terms of employment. They know, if you have what college education you have or high school education you have. They kind of have an idea or a sense of who you are. Right. So they're considering you. This is a good sign. That means whatever you put on your resume, and you may go back to the previous presentation to see what we said about resume building and cover letter. Now they're inviting you to come in for an interview. So think about this. They know something about you. They know who you are, your name, where you live, your educational background, professional background, maybe your hobbies, maybe some distinguishing characters about who you are, some awards if you have won. That's good. Now they want to see if you are as impressive in person as you are on your resume. Right. So they're interested in you, and they want to know more than what's on your resume, right? Because on your resume, you basically told them what you wanted to tell them. By inviting you to an interview, now they'll be able to evaluate, okay, well, you said on your resume you did this, because in any interview you go into, you're most likely to see the interviewer with your resume in their hand. They're holding your resume, right? They have reviewed it before you come in or before you came into the interview, and they see who you are. They glean through the information, and they're prepared to ask questions. So the big mistake that people make when it comes to interviewing is they don't prep. A lot of people think I can wiggle through this. I got this. I've done some interviews before. I'm just gonna go in there and give my spiel and get out, and I'm gonna lock this opportunity. When in reality, that's not how it really works. No matter how talented you think you are in being able to speak and communicate with the other side, and being able to talk about yourself, that's not enough. Practice is necessary. I would say, at a minimum of 3 days before the interview, you're out to sit down with yourself and try to practice, scenarios. And I'm going to discuss the STAR method, which is the method I want you to take away. If there's something you're going to take away from this workshop, it is the STAR method. If you can master the STAR method and learn how to tell the STAR method in a story, then I think you're in good shape. You're in good shape, no matter which interview you go into or what position you're applying for. So just keep that in mind. And then before you go into an interview, I want you to review the advertisement. Oftentimes people, they review an advertisement, they prepare the resume, they submit it, they get invited to an interview, and they don't go back and review the advertisement. Even ask yourself, how often have you gone into an interview without having reviewed the job advertisement again? Review what the qualifications and skills are that they were looking for. Why is that important? Because remember, you may be able to speak about what you can do, right, and your qualifications. But at the end of the day, that's not what's going to matter. They're not there just to test how well you can speak, but rather, can you convince them? Can you persuade them that you are the right fit? And how can you persuade them if you don't know what they're looking for? Right? If you don't know what they're looking for, if you can know what another person wants, what the other side wants, that's it. All you got to do is tie who you are and what you can do to what they're looking for, so that you can tell them, look, I am good for what you're looking for. And here's why: A, B, C reasons. So don't ever go into an interview without having reviewed the advertisement. All right, go back and review it. It'll take, maybe just a minute and a half to go through it. Read more about the company, read about the advertisement, the qualifications, and everything else. And then that would be helpful also when you develop your story, right, for the questions that you're going to be asked. Because as you're writing those stories, short stories, which I'm going to talk about in the STAR method, you want to think about, okay, these are the qualifications that they're looking for. These are the skills that they want. As you're writing those stories, you want to think about what they were looking for. That's very, very important. Because why? Because the interviewer, especially the first round, if you're dealing with the firm or a company that has maybe a second round and a third round, you're not going to get into the hiring manager maybe until the second or the third round of interviews. So who are you interviewing with in the first round? You may be interviewing with the HR staff. right? The HR staff, and maybe one person from the division from which you are applying, but it's not going to be the hiring manager. But if it's only one position, you may get lucky and have the hiring manager. But if it's multiple phases of interviews, then you got to understand that those people in HR, they don't know, they have an idea of what's happening in each division, but they don't know the day-to-day stuff that's going on in the division. So how are they going to evaluate if you're good or fit for the position? It's that job advertisement. That's what they're good at doing. That's the reason they're in HR, right? They're going to evaluate based on, what you said you're capable of on your resume, and they're going to test that. They're going to test that. They'll test your ability to communicate, your ability to speak about this, right? That's why it's important to, and I'll highlight this in red because it's critical. That I just want to stress it, because a lot of people mistakenly think I got this. They don't prepare. They just go into an interview thinking that they can master it, when in reality, that's not how it works. No matter how good you think you are, you still have to practice. And that's why I have this aphorism, and it basically says, no matter how qualified you think you are, if you cannot communicate your qualifications in a clear, organized, and convincing manner, then you are just a candidate, not the candidate. When I say the, meaning the right person for the job you're applying for. All right. So, and I give another example here. Imagine someone has a great product or a great idea. You know damn well that it's so great and that it's necessary. It's a great product that people can use. But if the person goes out to the public and tries to advertise the product in the wrong manner, if it's advertised in the wrong way, no matter how good the product, at the end of the day, it's a poor product. Not because the product is bad in and of itself, but rather the way it was conveyed was wrong. I mean, think about it, when people tarnish other persons or other people's reputation, don't you think that just by what people say, it ends up hurting the reputation or the image of that person or company? This is kind of the same thing. So you really have to prepare. Don't just think, as far as, interviews, I think I can speak well. English is my, first language or second language. I'm well spoken. Don't let your ego take over, your rational thinking, because you have to spend time. No matter how much you think you're good at what you do, it doesn't hurt to practice. The more you practice, the better you become at interviewing. Now let's delve into a job interview. Now we're going to get into the specifics, and like I said, if there's one thing I want you to take away from this presentation, and then it is this section that I'm going to go into, which is, which talks about the STAR method, and it's the best method that I have come to see to prepare a candidate for an interview. All right, so understand that for interviews, just so you have an idea, there are two types of questions. There are questions that test your skills, technical skills, and they may be called situational or technical skills. And there are behavioral questions, right? So the situational or technical skills, they test your ability to do something that's related to the job, right? It focuses more on a job-related skills and qualifications. It could be, mathematics, accounting. If it's teaching, maybe curriculum development, curriculum delivery. If it's in the finance, they may ask about, a particular ratio, or how to analyze a financial statement, or, how do you do an analysis of a company, if it's a good company or not? Should we buy stock or not? If you're doing, these are the situational and technical questions, mainly focus on questions related to the job that you are applying for. Right. So I have an example here. If you had to build up a team, how would you do that? And how would you foster communication and meet deadlines? This is a job specific question. Why? Because they want to see, are you able to work with others? Can you meet deadlines? And that's one type of questions you're going to get. The other type is behavioral questions, and those questions tend to They'll come to you, like for instance, with a question. They ask you a question, and you have to come up with a situation, right? A prior situation you have had, and how you handled yourself in that situation. And behavioral questions, they test your emotional intelligence, your EQ. Notice here, I draw a difference between IQ, which is the cognitive intelligence. This is more critical thinking, problem, your ability to do the job, and job skills, job related skills. Whereas the emotional intelligence, it focuses more on your traits. Right? What kind of person are you? Are you a problem solver? How do you deal with other people? How can you channel your emotions? When there's a crisis, or if you had a challenge, or let's say you had a failure, let's say you failed, you did something and you failed. What did you do? Did you go home and cry? Or did you say, you know what? Okay, I failed. I learned something. I'm not going to give up. That's just a new way of thinking. It's a new opportunity to do something differently. They want to see if you can get up when you're challenged emotionally. So this is an important distinction to keep in mind, so that when you prepare your stories, which I'll talk about in a later slide, you know how to distinguish between behavioral questions and situation. We'll take an example. We'll look at an example later on. So again, in these situational technical skills, they may be called the quantitative qualifications on a job advertisement. So they may be looking for, do you have skills in these areas, in budgeting, in research, in teaching, administration, in analyzing finance, legal research and writing, so on and so forth. So they're job related skills. The qualitative, it's your leadership. Are you a leader? Are you a team leader or not? And how do they know that? I mean, they look at your resume. What have you done? Have you served on a committee or a group, and you were the president or the manager, or were you a student? Were you the team leader for a particular project, or were you a manager? They can see these things. And crisis controller. When there's got to be a question. This is an often asked question in interviews. Give me a time when you had to deal with a challenge or a failure, right? And what did you learn? This is all designed to test your behavioral traits, because at the end of the day, the company wants to see, are you going to fit? So the hiring manager knows their staff, and they just want to see, because they don't want, because think about this, if the company is looking for someone to work in an environment where you have to do team working, and you're a person who has a really bad character with working with others. You don't like to work with others. Like, you know what? I just want to work by myself. But maybe the job is not fit for you. You shouldn't be in that place, because instead of coming in and helping and adding value, you're probably going to come in and cause more mess or cause problems. And that's the least they want. The manager does not want to hire someone who's going to come in and end up with the situation where there's complaints and there's, team issues, gossip, and so on and so forth. So they don't want that. So they have to test your ability. Can you work with others? Can you work alone? Can you work under pressure? I can't tell you, in the banking sector, investment banking, in the private equity sector, consulting, there's stressful jobs. There'll be days where you have to work, 10, 12 hours a day. And if there is a deadline coming up and something comes up right away, and the manager may say, hey, I know this is last minute, but here's a project. Hey, can you do a PowerPoint presentation here? Can you do this by tomorrow, by Friday? So they just want to see, can you adapt? Are you flexible? And those are important traits. And I would say that a lot of times in interviews, a lot of questions lean more toward this area, the qualitative behavioral traits questions, than the left side, the quantitative, right? Because think about this. How often have you, let's say if you've been hired somewhere and you've gone into a job, tell me how often have you went back to the job advertisement and read what they said you were going to do and compared it with what you're doing on the job? It doesn't happen very often, right? That's number one. Number two, the reason they focus on behavioral and qualitative skills, because even if you have a college degree, every company at the end of the day or firm, when you start with the company, they're going to train you. They're going to train you. Why? Because the company may have a certain way of doing things. What you learned in college or in high school or from a textbook, that's not a true representation of the real world. It doesn't work that way, right? It doesn't work that way. However, I would emphasize that what every manager really looks for is someone who has an intellectual curiosity, someone who's hungry, someone who's, you know what, yes, I don't know how to do this, but you know what, I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to try. I have never done that, but with some guidance and help, I will learn how to do it. These are the type of people that a lot of managers, they seek after, because they know that when you start a job, you're not going to be an expert. No matter which job you go for and you start, it's not like you're going to go in and know right away what to do. It doesn't happen very often, right? You still have to go in and learn about the dynamics of the company and how things are done and the protocols and the policies. So, and that's why I say they focus more on qualitative and behavioral traits questions. These questions right here, the emotional intelligence part, are you a problem solver? Are you a team leader? Are you flexible? Are you willing to learn? Or do you panic? Or are you, can you work on your own sometimes? Or how can you work under pressure? These are all questions designed to see if you're a good fit for the position. Now, let me. This is just something. Just wanted to show you in action. BlackRock, for those of you that don't know BlackRock, BlackRock is an investment company. Let me just share this with you. So BlackRock is it's an investment management firm. It's actually one of the largest in the world. So they're huge. So what I wanted to do is just kind of share with you a job advertisement. When I say job advertisement, this is what I am talking about. This is what I want you to go back and review. Whether you're building your resume or preparing for an interview, go back and read the job description. Take a look. Look at the responsibilities. This is basically JobRock. They'll give you a brief blurb on what they do. This is the job description. This is more specific to the division you're going to be within this larger company, whether it's a school district or a nonprofit or a private company, or even a government agency. Now they're going to tell you more about the division. They're going to narrow it down to the division, all right, and tell you more about what the division does, the areas it focuses on, and then they're going to narrow it down further to the responsibilities you're expected to do. All right, this is, you're going to have to create and improve financial models utilizing Cognos, TMI, and Excel to analyze budgets. And they're going to give you a list of responsibilities that you would be expected to do. Now, are they going to ask you a question peculiar to, let's say, are you able to do, can you do coding? Are you able to code on Python or R or C++? I mean, they may not ask these questions. Like I said, a lot of times from my experience, most questions, they focus more on these. That's why these are the responsibilities. It's good to know them, right? It's good to know them. Why? Because when you develop your story, short stories for answering questions, you have background idea, because the idea at the end of the day, what's going to matter is not just you saying, well, I did this or I have done that. Well, good for you. We know that you have done that. We see it on your resume, but at the end of the day is, can you do what we say we want you to do? You have to tie it to what they're looking for. And this is the most important section, I would say. This is my humbled opinion on a job advertisement. This is, because they're going to narrow it down further. Now, this is the skills and qualifications that they look for, right? Take a look at this. Let's just take a look at emotional or situational technical questions versus qualitative emotional questions that I talked about. For instance, right here, take a look at this one: attention to detail and high standards for quality and accuracy in work product. This is more of a situational question, right? They want to see a technical question. Are you a person who focuses on details? And do you review your work? Remember how we said about the resume? Don't send a resume with grammatical errors, because right away you may not get the job, because the manager's going to see that, or the HR manager is going to say, look, they sent a resume without having reviewed for grammatical errors. What does that tell you about their attention to details? right? What does that tell you about their skills to review their work before submitting it? If we task this person with writing a letter to a client, and the letter has a lot of grammatical errors, what is that going to? It's going to reflect badly on the company. That's not the person they want to hire. So right here, that was an example of a situational or technical skills question. Let me give you an example of an emotional or qualitative skills question right here. Strong problem-solving skills. Problem-solving skills is, it's as an emotional question, right? Can you do problem solving? So when there is a crisis and a problem arises, what are you going to do? Do you know how to think about the solution? Do you know what to do? Excellent time management skills, right? You want to talk about these things when you're developing your story. Say great attitude and strong work ethic. Again, that's another emotional question. They may ask you about an example. Give us a story or a scenario or an example where you had to work with others. And working with others is going to test your attitude. How's your attitude, your work ethics? So let's just go back to, that was just an example. So you have an idea of a job advertisement and basically how to go over the section in the job advertisement. And then let me share with you, actually, this is another good one here. This is from the Harvard University Public Health. This was basically an advertisement. This is a PDF that they basically talks about the questions that they expect their hiring staff to ask during interviews. So this is the questions, they're basically those are the questions they're going to ask you when you come in, right? They give them a list of questions. And it's like, ask whichever questions that you feel comfortable with, right? Depending on the candidate you're looking for. Look at the general questions. Tell me about yourself, right? This is an often asked question. And it's a question that many people don't know how to answer, right? Because it's a simple question. Tell me about yourself. But it is interesting how many people, and I would say even I struggle with this too. I mean, there's no shame in saying, we want to improve at something. To this day, I still try to do better at talking about myself. We don't do this very often, right? Number one. Number two, we don't know how to talk about ourselves. And this is something, like if I ask you, tell me about yourself. I mean, where would you start? You start school, work, family, personal preferences, hobby. I mean, where do you go? Where do you start? And that's something, hopefully I'll touch on as we go into the STAR method. And these are, remember, the behavioral-based questions or situational questions I talked about. Even on Harvard University, you can go on their website and find this, template right here. Some of the questions that they ask. This is in the realm of public health. So for those of you interested in public health, look at some of the questions they may ask. Look, does he even have a question about public health on there? Tell me about a time when someone was critical of your work and how you responded. Where's public health here? And that's why I said in interviews, they tend to focus more on behavioral than technical, because when you go in, you're expected to know the basics. You got to have the fundamentals of this fundamental skills for the job you're applying for. But they really want to see if you're a good fit. And that's where behavioral situational questions come in. Describe a time when you were working with a team and tell me about your role in the group, right? Describe a particular problem that you encountered at work and how you went about solving it. These are the questions that you are expected to know how to answer, I would say. Mainly these questions, right? Because they know that if you get hired, they're going to train you. And assuming they assume that you have the fundamental skills already, whether it's if you're in accounting or finance, you should know the basics already, but you're not expected to know everything about the job, because when you go in, eventually you're going to get trained. All right, so let's move on to talking about, let's just make sure I'm sharing the right. All right, let's move on talking about, now the method, right? This is the, all right, so here's what I want you to do. The best way, I think, to prepare for any interview, Any interview. I don't care if you're in the medical field, business, finance, banking, teaching, educational, public, nonprofit, it doesn't matter. What I would like for you to do is start thinking about small stories based on what's on your resume already, right? Go back to your resume because that's what you're going to submit to the company or to the firm you're applying for, right? This is what you basically, the highlights. If they invited you for an interview, they're interested in you. They want to hear, who you are. They want to hear about you. They want to see how you speak, how you communicate, how you think. So here's what I would like for you to do. And this is, I would say, at least, a week to 10 days in advance before the interview. Do not wait until the last day and try to cram everything in one day. That's not how it works. No matter how good you think you are, you're gonna struggle, believe me. And I can tell you this because there are good, public speakers or people who can speak, but they go into an interview and there are 3 people, 6 eyes looking at you, and you're like, whoa. I mean, you start to get emotional, you start to lose your train of thought, you get nervous, things change. So don't let your ego get in the way and say, oh, I got this. I'm really good at this. Don't do that. Don't do that. There's no need for that. It doesn't hurt. Just prep and give it your best when you're in there. So what I want you to do is, based on prior jobs and experiences you have had, I want you to start preparing short stories, and I'll give you the method. I want you to have a story on a challenging situation you had in the past. Describe a situation, which company you were in, what was your role, what was the action, and the result. Don't never, hey, listen to this. Don't never ever shy away from saying that you failed at something. Okay, I've done it. I tried this. I was with this company. We were tasked with this. These were my actions. This is what I did. And it was a genuine effort on my end, but you know what? The result was we didn't succeed. Okay, but you know what? I learned. I always close it. When I talk about a challenging situation, I always close it with, while we did not succeed in this endeavor or are reaching this or reaching that, however, I learned that next time, if I try to do the same thing, I'm going to keep so-and-so in mind, because that was what caused our failure in the beginning. All right. That's what it is. So I want you to have a story on a challenging situation, have a story on a leadership situation where you were a team leader, where you led a committee, where you were in charge of a project or a program. I want you to have a story on that. I also want you to have a story on, failure and learning experience. I kind of mix challenging and failure, but you can have a challenging situation and succeed, right? And you can have a failure situation, right? So it doesn't hurt to have more than one. Have a challenging situation, because they may ask you this. Give us a time when you were challenged, right? Give us a situation where you had to deal with this. That's a challenging question, right? Or they may tell us, give us a time where you failed, right? You talk about this, and then have a story on leadership. Have a story on team management. Have a story on a successful project, right? Have a story on a successful project. I was with so-and-so company or so-and-so firm or entity or so on and so forth, and I was tasked with doing this and this, and here's what I did, and guess what? Lo and behold, the results were, and we did it. We reached our sales target. We reached our mentoring program student target. We reached whatever it is on there. You say it, how you and what you did helped reach that success. This is very important. Now, as far as to the questions, tell us about yourself situation. This is a question that is just like, they actually did a study, and they found that the average American does not know how to answer the question, what is the purpose of life? This is kind of the same thing here, honestly. When someone asks you, tell me about yourself, a lot of people don't know where to start. Here's what I would say. For this specific question, I want you to prepare 2 or 3 stories, okay? 3 stories that basically encapsulate who you are. Please do not make the mistake that some people make. When they're asked to tell us about yourself, they go on and start with, okay, well, my name is Abraham. I live in so-and-so town, from so-and-so state. I'm in school. Come on. Don't do that. Why? Because on your resume, they know who you are. You know your name, your address, your phone number, your email, your school background. They know what you work. That's not what they're looking for. Do not waste time. They're giving you a time to talk about yourself. Tell them something that's not included on your resume, the substance. Give them the meat and butter that's missing from your resume, right? So what does that mean? That's why I say come up with 2 to 3 stories. I'll give you an example. And as a Yemeni American myself, I proudly grew up working with my father at a local retail store. This is a common story among Yemenis. We don't shy away from saying that. But you know what? This has actually become one of the many stories that I tell interviewers anywhere I go about who I am. From a young age, I was working with my father, helping him put food on the table for our family. And while working with him, this is what I learned. Working in a business, I learned how to deal with people. I learned blam, bam, 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 bam. And I'll give you the method. I use the STAR method. It's so beautiful, simple, and straightforward. Again, if there is something you're going to take away from this presentation and from what I'm sharing with you, please let it be the STAR method. Take that with you and take this slide right here so you can prepare stories, and that's it. And go home, and that's it. That's all I want you to take. But so prepare 3 stories. One could be about how you worked with your mom or dad when you were young, and how that taught you, about something about leadership, about responsibility, about management, about how to work with people of different backgrounds. I mean, working at a store, think about it. We come across people of different backgrounds, right? Different cultures, different language, when you work with different people, you're learning how to interact with people. This is a great skill set. Don't underestimate it. So come up with 3 stories, short stories. Now that could be one story. Another story could be, let's say you had a struggle. You lost a sister, you lost a mother, you lost a father. Maybe it's mom and dad went through a tough divorce, and that had an impact in you. It changed your outlook of life to the extent that it made you the successful person that you are today. Maybe your father passed away, when you were young, right? And your mom was the father and the mother of the house. Well, how did that impact you? Tell a short story. Don't be nervous. So when they say tell us about yourself, they're not talking about age and place and what's your favorite food and all that. Stay away from that as much as possible. What they're more looking for is give us basically in a story form. People love stories, man. People love stories. There was something great about, they said, about people who just, Abraham Lincoln is an example. They say he was a good orator because he was a good storyteller. People love stories. Why? Because they simplify things. They flow. Okay, give me the what, when, how, when, where. Bam. Okay, and that's what you need to do. Come up with 2, 3 stories from your life, personal life. It could be family. It could be, and you don't have to disclose specifics. But at the end of the day, you want to tell them that what you took away, how that event. Don't just say it. Say how that event or that experience taught you something. How did it help shape the person you are today, who you are today? That's what they're looking for. All right. And then here I say quantitative skills. If you're in the medical field, that'll be different. I use quantitative because I'm biased. I'm in the finance and econ field and economics field. So sometimes we're asked about, give us a project, a quantitative project you worked on, where you use econometrics methods to evaluate relationships between things. But in the medical field, they may ask you something about specific to the medical field. So have a story in the medical field. Have short stories. Okay. Now the question is, how do we come up with those stories, Abraham? Come on, give me the meat and butter. All right, let's get to it. All right. Again, I've mentioned this method in the past, and when we talked about the resume building. Right now, I'm going to go over it, but in more details and more examples, right? Because I want you to master this method. If you master this method, that's it. And you prepare and you practice. You'll be ready for any interview, no matter what it is. All right. Remember, the STAR method is basically, and it's a very popular method. This is not unique to me. I wish I could say I was the author of this method, right? But you can come up with any method. But this has by far been one of the most successful methods, often advertised by career specialists. STAR method is basically this. You talk about this. STAR stands for situation. What's going on? Explain the situation, the landscape. Which company you were with. What was your role, right? Task. What was your role in that company? And you highlight. Was there a challenge you were in? Was there an issue? Was there a setback? Was there a successful story? And then your action. Action is basically what was your role in that particular story or role that you're telling them. What is it that you had to do? How did you contribute to the position? And lastly, this is the most beautiful part and the most important for whether it's for resume or interview, is that's what they look for. Result, man. Give me the result. I'm telling you, managers, they're human beings. And it's okay to say that as human beings, they're result oriented. That's how managers are evaluated, results. So think about it. If they're evaluated based on results, wouldn't it be best to just give them the results, right? Tell them what was the result from what you were sharing with them. And that's where we go back to this difference between speaking. You can tell someone, well, I did this. I was with this company and this was my role. And these were my actions. Okay, good. It's like someone telling you, hey, it's like, if it's like I tell you, hey, I love finance, and you tell me, okay, good for you. But wouldn't it be better for me to tell you I love finance and here's why? A, B, and C reasons. That's even more benefit. That's more appealing than just saying I love finance. So the result is very important. Now the outcome, whatever it is, the outcome, successes, learning experience, failure, share it. That's going to depend on, remember, going back to the slide, based on the section you're talking about, whether it's challenging situation or if it's, let's say, for example, failure, I expect to see here the result. We did not reach our target, blah, blah, blah. But tell them, don't just close it there. Tell them that you're someone who's willing, who doesn't accept failure. You accept it and you don't stop there. That's what I mean. But I accept, I acknowledge the fact that we didn't reach our goal, but we learned something. And for next time, I know how to do better. That's what it is. All right. So you're basically preparing a star for each of these areas. And depending on the job advertisement, that's why I say read it. You want to prepare small stories for each of the areas that they look for, right? Whether it's quantitative or challenging or leadership. By the way, if you have questions, ask. I will take questions as I'm going through. You don't have to wait until the end. Just wanted to put that out there. All right, so let me give you an example. So this is a situational scenario, right? And we talked about situational and behavioral. Okay, so situational scenario, let's talk about, this tests your managerial and marketing skills. And, I've used this example in the past. So what was the situation? Just wanted to give you an example of how to use the STAR method. All right, I served as a marketing manager at XYZ firm, a leading marketing firm in the tech industry. All right, so what was your task? Well, I managed 10 employees and oversaw the execution of my firm's marketing strategy. Action. Okay, what did you do? Good. Now you managed 10 employees and you executed the strategy. Good for you. Okay, how was that strategy executed? Well, we advertised through social media, right? Radio and TV, and we evaluated strategy effectiveness using quantitative methods, right? Okay, good. That was your action. Now, tell me the result from what you did from this skill right here, experience you're sharing with us. What was the result? Where our marketing team increased sales by 10% over a period of 12 months and recruited 15 more customers. Bam. That's it. All right. Obviously, you're not going to talk like that. You may be asked, give us a time where you had a successful, experience or you did well on something. All right. Well, I served for marketing manager for XYZ. It's a leading firm in the tech industry. While there, I managed 10 employees and I oversaw the execution of the firm's marketing strategy. As part of that marketing strategy, we advertised through social media so that we can reach to a broader audience and to the young people on social media in the hope of increasing our sales. And then I led the evaluation of the strategy's effectiveness to see if we were doing well or not. And the result from that experience is that we were able, or I helped, or if you were the only one, you could say we were able to increase sales by 10% over a 12-month period. And we recruited 15 more customers. That's it. This is beautiful. That's what they say. Story, landscape, task, action. result. Give it to them. Okay, here's another example. Okay, this is now focuses on me being a team leader, for example, right? This is me showing that I am a team leader. How? I'm going to say I served as a portfolio manager for a student-run fixed income fund at Harvard University. The fund comprised of 250,000 corporate, government, and MBS assets. What was your task? Okay, this is what it is. You're a portfolio manager. That was your position. Good. Okay, and you told me about the fund. Nice. Now, what was your task? Well, I had to manage 15 students. I had to set the profit target. I had to evaluate the benchmark, and I had to allocate the funds, meaning the money, I have to spend it in different investment classes. Good. All right. So what did you do? What was the action? All right. When you to allocate and set the funds, what did you do? Well, I had to analyze the Federal Reserve's monetary policy and government fiscal policy. Good, okay. We worked with 3 student teams. So our teams was divided into 3. That shows that you're a team leader because you're a portfolio manager. That's what you're trying to show. I am a leader. I'm a team leader. And you're showing that. And you're showing how you're able to work with other people. And you're showing how you're able to work with different teams and how to be responsible for a project, right? And then you made decisions. What was the result? Okay, by the end of the academic year, we outperformed the benchmark by 25 basis points, and our communication strategy worked well. All right, and by the end of the year, we had a dollar return of 7,500. That's it. This is great. This is great. So you can see what I mean by using the STAR method. And again, you're basically developing stars. Going back to this, you have to know yourself based on the job you're applying for. What are the areas that the company is looking for in a candidate? You may say emotional intelligence, cognitive intelligence, leadership skills, managerial skills, team working skills, ability to work under pressure. You can develop small stars, okay? Small stories. When I say star, that's what I mean, stories here. Now, this is it as far as the STAR method. I can assure you that if you develop your STAR mini stars, like small stories in different areas, at a minimum 7 to 10 days before the interview, by the time the interview comes, and you practice. Don't just build it and that's it. Read it once, twice, and say that's it. You go into an interview thinking I got this. No, I can assure you, you will forget something. You're going to mix up the task with the action. You may mix up the situation with the action. It has to flow, people. Nice and organized. Remember, that's how. When you break it down into simple points for people, they're able to follow, and you're able to convince them why you are the right fit for the position you're applying for. So break it down. Tell your story, right? Tell your story. All right. Lastly, as far as another critical element of an interview, and this is a question that let's see. I have a question, I think, here. All right, so there's a question that says, these days, focus is all about skills. Could you please elaborate this further? Okay, okay, let me address this question. So basically, you're right. They are going to focus on skills because some companies, they don't want to spend too much time. They're going to train you, but they don't want to spend too much time training you. So obviously, I would say if you're applying for a position, make sure you have the proper skills. Right? You got to have at the minimum skills to do well. So if you don't have skills in finance, don't go apply for a finance job. Or if you're in accounting, don't go apply for a job that's not related to what you are good at. I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to what you can do. So to highlight your skills, again, here's what I was saying. Number 1, read the advertisement. All right? Because on there, remember how we showed on there that if you go back to the previous slide, we showed that when they narrowed down the job advertisement, there's a section in there that says skills and qualifications. Focus on that section. Based on the skills that they're looking for, I want you to develop a star for each skill set. So for instance, if they look for someone who can do financial modeling, for instance, you want to tell a small story about how you did financial modeling for a previous company. All right, I worked for so-and-so company, and I was tasked with, doing financial modeling. We would take, scenarios or investments, and we would develop the financial modeling to evaluate the return on the investment. And then the action is through these modeling, we were able to, 2 out of the 3 projects that we pursued, returned, a 30% return, so on and so forth. As far as skills, as I mentioned, read the job advertisement and look at the specific skills that they look for. It's okay for them to highlight skills. They have the right to do that because they don't want to spend too much time training you, right? So they'll train you, but they're expecting you to come in with the basics, like So if you're coming in and they're talking about, let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're coming in and they're talking about cap rate. Let's say in the real estate business, for instance, you come in and they're talking about cap rate. Don't expect them to go and give you a lecture on cap rate. Like they're talking about the accounting equation: asset equals liability plus equity, equity or shareholders equity, right? Don't expect them to tell them what asset is or what's the normal account over an equity, or you're expected to know these things. But application, they're going to teach you that. But so develop stories for each skill that they look for, based on the job advertisement and based on your resume. Second question is, how can you describe yourself without repeating your resume? Remember, on your resume, you basically told them the results. Remember how we talked about last time we talked about resume building? You're basically putting the results of what you did with the company. You're not gonna repeat yourself, obviously, because in the interview you don't have time to talk about everything you did with the company, right? So what you need to do is pick one line from your resume from each section of the company or the experience that you shared with them. Pick one line that you feel comfortable with elaborating on, right? So you may have done a lot of things with the company and they all went successful. Good. Well, you can't talk about each point. It'll be time consuming. Take one and then build a story for it. Elaborate more on it. How did you achieve that result? Walk them through it, because what they may want to see is, how do you think? How is your problem solving skills application, and how do you go about building communication among a team, for instance? And then if there's a challenge, are you someone who learns from their challenge and failure, or are you someone who panics and runs away, or is not able to know how to deal with problems? Those are the kind of things. I would say you don't have to technically repeat everything on your resume, but you do have to elaborate on each one. So take one line or 2 lines from your resume and build a STAR method. Build a story for them. Walk them through how you got to that result. That's what they want to see. Right? The reason they invited you back because they know you're a good candidate. They're interested in you. They just want to see how you were able to get to those results. What are good questions to ask at the end of the interview? Okay, before that, it says here, how come across as confident without seeming too arrogant? How do you come across as confident without being arrogant? The STAR method is going to be the best way. Again, that's why I'd say practice, 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 because the STAR method is going to discipline you. What does that mean? Sometimes people who are good speakers and they can just, express themselves, they like to blah, 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 just go on and on. And that's a problem. I would say if you use the STAR method, you'll be disciplined because you use it and you practice. Again, no matter if you can build a beautiful stars, and if you don't practice, you're not gonna do well. You're not gonna do well. Seriously, practice, okay? When you practice, when you go into an interview and you ask a question, then you'll go back to that STAR. Well, let me share with you this. For instance, tell us a time when you had to work with the team. All right. Well, let me share with you my experience while working as a portfolio manager for a student-run fund at Harvard University. The fund has $250,000 worth of, government corporate securities. I managed so-and-so employees or students and so on and so forth. So you're walking them through the steps of what you did, how you did it, and how you got to the result, to the bottom line. Okay, so don't try to keep it nice and straight to the point. I would say that. And then as far as arrogance, um, I don't know. I mean, it depends. It comes down to how you speak, right? If you're, I mean, people, it's not just what you say. Remember, your eyes would communicate something, your hands, your gesture, your facial features, they're going to say something. At the end of the day, if you're talking and, you think that you got this and you're the candidate, obviously you're going to come out as someone who's arrogant. But if you're just being yourself, just be yourself. Okay, be yourself and be humbled. Be humbled. Arrogant people don't go too far in life. And the reason for that is because anywhere they go, they chase people away from them, and no one is going to rally for them whenever they're ready to become leaders. Believe me. So be humbled. Lastly, about questions. This is actually the next part I'm gonna touch on. Okay, let's see. Okay, asking the right questions. Remember, in every interview, at the end of each interview, they ask you, do you have questions for us? Okay, this is another important element, okay? Because a lot of people don't know how to ask questions. And it's not an easy one either. I understand, believe me, I struggled with it. And to this day, we continue to improve. We're only human beings. But what matters is, are we willing to learn and try to be better? That's what it comes down to. So I would say, number one, in this particular section about asking questions, they're really looking for someone who is really passionate about the company or the firm. All right. And they can tell that, believe me, the questions you ask can shed light on, whether you're passionate or you're just someone who's just trying to wiggle through this interview, hoping just to land a job. Okay. So I would suggest this: study the company and the firm. Okay, you're applying for. Study them. Know the company, know what they do, know what industry they're in. You want to know everything about the company. It's very important. Spend time, right? The higher you get as far as interview, applying for a Fortune 500 company, right? 500 company, they have a very hectic interview process, maybe 2-3 interviews. It won't be easy. By the time you get to the third interview, you've gone through a lot. Right? So if they're willing to spend the time and resources to sit with you 3 times and pay their staff to meet with you, right? And the resources and the technology and the phone and calling and emailing, and they're spending hundreds of dollars. Okay? Why aren't you willing to spend time studying about the company? Because at the end of the day, as far as questions, they want to see if you're passionate or not. So study about the company. You want to show your passion when you're at the interview. You want to show your passion for the company. You want to show how you can come in and add value. That's number one. Number two, check if the company has been in the news lately, right? Check if the company is excelling in one thing, right? If they've been in the news, if there's something good being said about the company, or if the company is being challenged, you may be able to come up with a question related to this. And I'll give you examples, okay? Just hang tight. I'll give you examples. Also, look at the company's industry. Look at the industry, the industry the company is in. Is this industry being challenged or not? Right? How's this? I'll give you an example. The retail industry. Think about what e-commerce like Amazon did to all these traditional retail companies. Aran Toys, Shabok, Sears. All these companies are going out of business. That's it. They're being driven out. Why? Because the new way of shopping is online, and you either ride with the growth or not. So you may want to study the industry and see how you can ask a question about, well, how does your company embrace change? What is the company doing about this technological advancement? Is your company embracing the technology or not? Or what? You see what I mean? You want to ask meaningful questions. I want to give you examples. So again, ask a question that could show that you did your homework on the company. All right? Okay. What are excellent questions? Let me give you an example. I give 3 examples in 3 different sectors. Let's say the banking sector, okay? I don't know if some of you know this, but there's something called blockchain technology. It's just a new technology. I don't have time to explain it, but this is just an example. And you may ask, hey, how does the blockchain technology, how is it transforming financial transacting? Has the bank adopted the technology, and how do you foresee the technology affecting your client business services? Bam. Boy, this is a really good question, because it shows that you're forward thinking. You're thinking about, okay, well, it seems like if this is the kind of person, if he is sitting in a meeting with us, these are the kind of questions he would bring up, is how do we move the company forward? He's talking about, technology, transformation, and how do we adapt? This is a good question in the banking sector, because blockchain technology is revolutionizing financial transacting. It really is. So it kind of shows that you're doing your homework. Okay. And I'm going to tell you some questions not to ask. I have a slide on that. Just relax. The energy sector. Okay, this is an energy sector. For instance, on your 2020 third quarter report, I saw that in the next 3 years, 25% of your assets under management are going to be environmentally friendly. Could you shed light on why that's attractive to your management and investors? Boy, this is a good question. It's a really good question. Why? Because energy sector, as you know, is being challenged right now because of climate change, and renewable energies are being introduced, and EVs, electric vehicles, and everything else. If you're a gas company, for instance, or oil company, this is a good question to ask. It's like, you read our report. Wow, we appreciate you spending time. And you saw that we're actually going to dedicate 25% of our assets to green energy, basically. Okay, we can share with you about our company. Yeah, and they'll tell you why they're dedicating 25% of their assets to green energy. They're gonna engage with you. They're gonna share it, and it shows that the question you ask just touches the heart of the companies and their growth and their future. Last example I'm going to share with you is educational sector. Let's say you're applying to work for a school district, for instance. All right, you may ask a question like, hey, since COVID-19 broke out and students were forced to study from home, we have witnessed depression and drug abuse among high school students increase. How does the school district plan to address these challenges? Bam, this is a good question. You're not asking, hey, is the school going to be online or not online? Hey, the school district follows the state guidelines, state and federal government guidelines. You can just go see the guidelines and that's it. Don't ask a question that's so obvious. Okay, let me give you an example here. And I know there's a question in the chat. I'll get to it right now. Medicare questions. Those aren't just questions that just please stay away from them. A lot of people make the mistake of asking, questions that are just not great questions, like obvious questions. All right, do not ask a yes or no questions. All right, are you going to adopt the new state guidelines on teaching delivery? Okay, well, you may, I don't know, I just came up with this example, by the way, but if you know the specific guideline, this isn't really a yes or no question. Yes, we are going to adopt it. You don't want to ask a question that the interviewer could answer by yes or no. Don't do that, because you want to engage with them. You want them to say more, right? To show them you're passionate. You want to learn more as well. It's not just a yes or no question. So if your question could be answered by yes or no, stay away from it. Number 2, do not ask a question that's frequently asked questions from their website. Go to their website, and that's why I say study the company. Go to their website and read the questions they have on their website. If your question is on there, that's a question you want to stay away from, okay? Or if it's a question that you can get from their website. For example, hey, what's the company's stock price? Who's your CEO? Hey, what is the company's mission? If you're, does your company have this division in economics and an investments division? Don't ask a question you can find an answer for on their website. They know that. They know what's out there. Don't ask a more substantive question, more meaningful, a question that they weren't even expecting, right? You're talking about something that's more meaningful, about growth, about stability, about a challenge to the company, something that's not obvious. That's something that you cannot get from their website, okay? Do not ask questions about salary, benefits, or time off. Hey, how much will I be paid? Okay? That's something you can negotiate when they give you an offer. All right. How much does your average entry level employee make? I mean, they may have that information on their website. You can go and look it up online. Those are just, I think they're just baseless questions. You're wasting your time asking these questions. All right. Another top questions people ask, they ask the interviewer about their experience working in the company. How do you like working for the company? I mean, think about this. If the interviewer is working for the company, and let's say that probably moving on, what do you expect the interviewer to respond about the company? They work for the company. Most likely, they may be biased. They may not say something negative about the company they work for. You know what I mean? It's just so don't ask, hey, how do you like working for the company? Or how long have you been working? That's not what they're looking for. They're more looking for questions like these. You're looking at the industry, you're looking at the future of the company, a challenge the company is facing, a new technology, a new invention, a new customer base, and you're just hitting the nail on the head. You're asking them a questions like, whoa, this is forward thinking. This is good question. And you can go back and view the slides if you want. And I'm happy if you have a question on a particular industry, okay? Let me see, there's a question here. Okay. All right, please conclude with this comment from Attorney Asmali. I have interviewed over 100 people in the last year and a half. Okay, so Attorney Asma said that she have interviewed over 100 people in the last year and in the last year and a half, and it blows my mind how people don't know how to create a good and clean resume and how unprepared individuals are for interviews. Okay, thank you so much for sharing, Attorney Asma. This is very important. And that's why I go back and say, don't let your ego get in the way. No matter how good you think you are, no matter what qualifications and skills you have, if you cannot communicate what you could do in a manner that's clear, organized, and persuasive, then you've lost the opportunity. Okay. And she does state that this presentation is very helpful and informative, and I appreciate the comment, Attorney Asma. But again, we do have a presentation on the resume, and this is just presentation on the interview. But again, you have to start in advance. I would say 10 days before the interview, practice, practice, practice. Build your stars, okay, your small stories in different areas. A story about challenge, a story about 3 stories. For the question about, tell us about yourself, you want to have 3 stories at a minimum. A question about quantitative skills, question about a success story, question about a project you worked on, a question about working with people. You want to have these different stories about these different questions so that when they ask you, bam, and you have practice, it just flows. Hey, tell us about a time when you did this. All right. Let me share with you a story when I was working with so-and-so company. I had to work with a group of 10 people. And while working, we had to do A, B, and C. And our responsibility was comprised of, doing this, and that. And by the end of the semester, by the end of the year, we were able to achieve so-and-so results. This is so nice and beautiful. It flows, easy, bam, get to the point. So make sure you implement the STAR method and ask good questions. And then after the interview, when you have left the interview, I would say send a thank you note after the interview and make sure you address your interview by their name. If it's more than one interviewer, make sure you find out. For me, I'll give you an example. I reach out to the HR department and I asked them, hey, the people that interviewed me, could you give me their contact information, their email, and their names? And I will send a thank you note to each one of them because that's an appreciation. They gave me time out of their life. It's just, I think, respectful on my end to thank them for that time, even though that's something they had to do. All right, send a thank you note, thanking them for the opportunity and for this. And then maybe you want to say 1 or 2 lines about how, you really hope that you get this opportunity and how you're a good fit. And thank you, and that's it. And this is it. Now, lastly, this is job interview. I hope I answered all your questions. And if you have more questions, ask. I know I've gone for too long, but hey, we're making these videos for future use as well. So I'm going to get to the college interviews right now, because there are some students who can use some tips on college interviews. But I'm just going to go through the college interview section, because essentially the tips are the same. They're kind of almost the same. Whether you're preparing for a job interview or college is an enterprise, it's an entity, and company is an entity. So you kind of have to still use, the same means to do well in the interview. All right, for college interviews, again, you really have to learn how to talk about yourself. I know when you're applying for college, you may not have had experience in the past, like jobs. So everything that you could talk about has to be related to your school, to your high school journey, and your extra curricular activities. But don't shy away that if you work with your dad at a store or a business, or your mom, or so on and so forth, that's something you can highlight. All right. So number one, here's what schools are looking for. Schools, first, they want to know about your educational interest and goals. You don't have to specifically state what you want to major on. You may not know exactly what you want to study, but it's good to have an idea. All right. It's good to have an idea which field you want to end up in. So you may want to say, I love medicine. Okay, don't just say I love medicine and I want to go to medical school. Okay, good for you. All right, but tell us why. Was there a story behind it? Like, for instance, I remember reading a story about someone whose father got sick. He had cancer and he passed away. And because of this story, because of this experience in his life, it really nudged him to study medicine and to contribute to the field of medicine and come up maybe with a cure for cancer. That's so impactful. Now you see how impactful that is. So whether it's business, if you study business, why? Did you work with your father growing up, and that opened your eyes up? You can help, provide for your family or something. Share. What is it you want to study at the school, and why? You always got to tell them the why, because they want to understand what's behind the interest. They want to know that story. Okay, number one. Number two, learn about the school. Same way we talk about job advertisements, you learn about it. I would say learn about the school and the college you're applying for too. Do your homework. You need to know what the school is good at. Some schools are really, they stand out for their research. Some schools have good medical schools. Some schools have good business schools. Some schools have, good study abroad program. What is it? You need to be able to tell them, what was it about this school specifically that made you want to go study at that school? They want to know that. Why them? It's like, why Harvard? Why Berkeley? Why Stanford? Why Fresno State? Why NYU? Why, CUNY or any other school for that matter? Why? Why our school? You could have gone to so many other schools, but why us? That's where the persuasion comes in, because you need to study about the school. What was it about the school in particular that made you want to go to it? Does it have good professors? Is there a specific professor you want to work for? Why? Did you study his research and you were intrigued by it, therefore you want to know more? Okay, say something about the school. Okay, ask. Okay, actually, now thirdly, and this is another important point, you want to talk about how the school, believe me, man, schools, they love this. They love candidates who can tell them how will the school help them get to their career goals. I can't stress how important that is. It's like if you're trying to become something later on, after you talk about why the school in particular, talk about how the school will help you get to that career goal. Like what is it about the school that you found unique that's going to help you get to your future career goals? Schools love it, because at the end of the day, that's what the school is for. They're going to train you to get to the career goal you want. That's why they exist. Okay? So tell them, all right? Talk about your extracurricular activities, leadership skills, teamwork, patience, hard work, anything that highlights something you did while in school. You want to talk about these things. You want to talk about these things because they want to see, schools always look for the best of the best, man. They want to see, if they can attract someone who's going to add value to the student body. They don't want all the students to be the same. They want some students to be good at leadership, some at management, some at patience, some at virtue, some at morality, some of this. And by bringing a diverse group of student body, the students enrich the learning experience. So make sure you highlight your extracurricular activities and ask good questions, not found on the college website. Same way with the company. Don't ask a question you can find on the college website. Hey, does your school offer an econ major? Does your school have a marketing division? Come on, go on the website and find that out. I would rather see you ask a question about, hey, your school was on the news lately and this and so happened. How does the school plan to address free speech issue on campus? Or how does the school plan to address diversity? How does the school, questions that would help the school see that what if they accept you, you may be a part of the solution. You may come in and add value to the school, improve diversity, improve inclusion, improve, public school policy on different issues. That's what they look for. So, and then learn how to talk about yourself. Going back to slide 1, people, in order to be able to speak and persuade, you have to read. You got to be a reader. Okay. If you do not read, let me emphasize this, especially in our community. Okay, if you're not a reader, if you don't read a minimum of 45 minutes a day, I can assure you that you're going to struggle with communication no matter what. And I dare say that I challenge anyone to tell me otherwise. Okay. All right. Next is, again, same way we did with the job interview. I want you to do the same thing. I want you to start preparing small stories using the STAR method for different areas that's related to you, like the school. That's why you're going to learn about the school and look at what they look for, what kind of candidates they like, what kind of candidates they look for, and start preparing different small stories using the STAR method on sports, project that you worked on, to talk about yourself, story, contest. You maybe have been in the speech writing contest. It may have been the mock interview contest. I don't know. It may be something, whatever contest. If you're a part of the student body in your high school, talk about that. Start building small stories using the STAR method so that when you're asked a question, you're disciplined. Your story is going to flow. You know what you're talking about. You're not rambling. Do not ramble. If you ramble, I can assure you that they're gonna see that you're not ready, that you just came to the interview not ready. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just hoping that they're going to think you're good for the school and they're just going to admit you. That's not going to happen. Practice, practice, practice. Okay, again, going back to that STAR method, the same thing. Okay, the STAR method, and I'm only repeating this slide just because if someone decides to watch the college section of this presentation, then they know what I'm talking about. Again, the STAR method stands for situation. You talk about whatever story you're building, a challenging story, you highlight a failure, a success, a project, an extracurricular, a contest, a competition, anything. Use the STAR method. Lay out the situation. I was in so-and-so, I was a president in my junior year of high school at so-and-so school. What was your task? As a president, I had to set the agenda on so-and-so and so. Okay, good. What was your action? Well, I met, once a month with the school administration, and we discussed issues that matter to students. What were the results? While president, did you achieve something? Yes, we helped improve. I don't know. We helped improve the budget, of the student body. We helped, address bullying on our school. We helped, address something. Talk about what is it that you did and what was the result of that task. Let me give you an example right now. So let's say, for example, you want to talk about teamwork and leadership as a student. All right, so you may say, okay, well, as I said, I served as a student body president during my junior year of high school at so-and-so high school, and I ran a successful campaign with a team of 5 students and worked hard to make sure students understood how I wanted to address abuse in our school, right? Drug abuse in our school, right? It shows that by saying this, that tells me 3 things. He works well with teams. He can work with other people. Great. Colleges love that. Okay. He's a team leader. He was a president. Okay. And then he's goal oriented. He had a goal, and his goal was to tackle drug abuse in school. All right. Now tell me the task. Well, as president, what did you have to do? I set the agenda. I was, communicating with the students and the staff, and we had to set the goals, right, to implement the drug abuse program. What was actions? What did you do? Okay, well, I met with students once a month to discuss drug abuse issues. I connected 35 students with rehabilitation services and provided emotional and resource support. Good. Okay, that shows me that you not only were just wishfully thinking about getting something done, you're doing it. You're meeting with students, you admitted some students to the rehabilitation program, you're coordinating with the school. And then what was the result? This is the best part they love. Well, I helped graduate 7 students from the drug rehabilitation program. Isn't that impactful? Think about it. Isn't that impactful? It's like you changed the lives of 7 students. And God knows what their lives would have been like if you had not intervened, if you have not been there. That's amazing. These are the kind of things you want to highlight. These are the kind of things that schools need, companies, firms want to see. They want to see people who come in and make an impact. They're ready to roll up their sleeves and get to work and make a change. And then, you institutionalize the Crises Awareness Committee. You started a committee and you made sure that it stays, so that after your term finished, it continued to serve the school. And that's what I mean by the STAR method. And that's what I mean by tell your story. Develop short stories and practice. As you read this multiple times, you're learning. And now when it comes to the interview, it's going to flow. I was doing some president. I was doing this. We were doing that. Those are the actions we did. These are the results we achieved. All right. Lastly is asking excellent questions. Again, even the schools, just like jobs, they look for good questions. So make sure that you study the school you're applying for, okay? So you can demonstrate your passion. The questions you ask have to show you have passion to join the school. Check out the college to see if it's been in the news recently, and come up with questions related to the school, right? And then talk about if there are any cultural challenges in the school. Ask questions related to the diversity, maybe the inclusion, anything pertaining to the school. That's why I say study the school. All right. So do your homework on the school. And then you want to ask, when you prepare those questions, I would say, don't ask a question you can find on the college website, about majors, about GPA, about SAT, that's not what you want to ask. You want to ask a question about, hey, how is the college dealing with the free speech issue that came up last year on campus? Or what have the school done since this issue happened last year? Hey, a student committed suicide on campus last semester. What did the school administration do to raise awareness and to provide resources to students? These are good questions, right? It shows that you did your homework, right? How did he know that this happened? Because you studied the school. Show your passion. Like, for instance, if the school plans to start a new department, say, hey, I found out that the school is going to start in AI department, artificial intelligence and machine learning department, or data analytics department. How does the school see this program impacting the future, job prospects for students? Something like that. Good questions. All right. I'm going to share this with you. This is again from Harvard University. This is specifically for students, and I just want to briefly go over this. How to win the interview. This is a college interview, okay? First, again, as I keep saying, know the school, okay? Know the school, dress accordingly, ask questions, okay? I'm going to share the link on Facebook in the comments box so that you guys have access to it. Ask questions, good questions. And then again, tell them why you want to attend this school. In particular, why that school? Why? What is it about the school that you liked? All right. And last two is be yourself, and then follow up with a thank you note after the interview. Okay. That's very important. So I think I know that we went on for an hour and so, but I just hope this would be helpful for students and professionals out there. And if there are so many resources on the college websites, you can find a lot of resources on the career websites about interviews and job preparation and and resume building. Teachers and professors could be very helpful. Ask them for help. Do a test interview with your professor or your teacher. They could give you feedback. And then mentors. Don't forget, AAYSP has a mentoring program. Reach out and ask for help. Your school alumni network, and then your school career specialist could help you as well. And that'll be it. That's it. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you found this presentation helpful. And now, if there aren't any questions, I'm just going to go ahead and end it.